Hello and welcome to the news on NTA International. I'm Nancy Godi Angunihu and our sign language personality is Hannah Olayinka. First, the headlines. Kaduna State government commiserates with families of victims of Tonga Biri community over attack. Nigeria signs MOUs with multilateral organizations on energy at COP28. Plus, Tanzania faces difficult times as raging floods leave destruction on its path. Nigeria enters another strategic partnership with a leading European manufacturing factory and other multilateral partners for the production of lightweight solar panels after the signing of a memorandum of understanding on the sidelines of COP28 in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. Here's Charles Alpha reporting that this is coming barely hours after securing a deal on electrification.
Nigeria started seeing tangible results of negotiations barely 4 days into COP28. Two memoranda of understanding, all on accelerating Nigeria's climate commitment and just transition. Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria, African Green Infrastructure Investment Bank and Solarge will by this commitment create solar panel in the country using recycling plastics.
So this MOU you are signing today is going to support our intention to extend electricity access to the rural dwellers.
The PV manufacturing plant will be one of the large-scale production facilities in the world for lightweight panels with ultra-low carbon footprints.
Capital is being mobilized to finance a green industrialization strategy, and that is something which I think is a testament to the change that we see in the area of climate finance, and Africa is leading the way with this project.
We believe a new era of made in Nigeria, clean and efficient energy solutions and technologies.
It is actually going to be an example of how we can trade across borders.
Another MOU was signed by the National Council on Climate Change on behalf of the federal government with the African Climate Foundation.
AFC is providing catalytic financing to the National Council on Climate Change for implementation of climate change policies, development of climate change projects, green projects that will also lead to the earning of carbon credits.
The federal government power company also recently signed an MOU with Siemens Energy to help build Nigeria energy sources. From Dubai, Charles Alpha, NTA News.
President Umaru Sissoco Embalo of Guinea-Bissau dissolves the country's parliament following last week's attempted coup. The president says that new election to the parliament will be announced on a later date. A decree issued on Monday, which cited last week's failed coup, further raised concerns about political stability in the country and the entire coup-hit West African region. The Russia-Ukraine war is one with global consequences and has indeed become a tragedy to the Ukrainians, aside the fact that of being a threat to European security. This was the take-home from the United Kingdom's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office media briefing with international media organizations. Oyeyemi Ajayi has more.
2 years gone, and the war in Ukraine has continued without the Russians retreating nor the Ukrainians surrendering. The global effects cannot be underestimated as world leaders call for an end to the war. For the United Kingdom, there is no relenting in utmost support for Ukraine, a formidable ally with a determination to stand by Ukraine until the end of the war.
We're clear that Russia could end this war by withdrawing its troops now. However, there is no sign that President Putin has given up on his aim of subjugating Ukraine, but he is doing that despite the high costs to his own side.
But Ukraine has made progress. think it's important to note it has recaptured almost half of the territory that Russia illegally seized since the beginning of this conflict, which is amazing.
Of concern is the global consequences of the war, which they say has affected global food security, aside Ukraine's inability to feed the world.
Fundamentally, the UK supports Ukraine's right to export its products from its ports through whatever routes it chooses. At the same time, we've continued to work with Ukraine, so the UK has contributed a total of £8 million to President Zelensky's Grain from Ukraine initiative.
To continue to undermine Russia's ability to fund and wage its war against Ukraine, and that includes by cracking down on circumvention or attempts by Russia and its enablers to skirt the impact of our sanctions.
It was revealed that UK will continue to support Ukraine until the war in Ukraine comes to an end. And one thing they have agreed and consented to is that until Vladimir Putin of Russia stops and ends the invasion, they will not end the support. From London, Oyeyemi Ajayi, NTA News.
Let's bring you more on COP28. Nigeria is exploring ways to secure interventions to adequately serve the hydroelectric power producing areas and cushion effects on communities displaced as a result of construction of dams. Charles Alpha reports that the Minister of State for Environment, Isiaq Asalako, and Hyperdeck on the sidelines of COP28 made a case on why now is the time for foreign investors to come in.
With keen interest, investors and those of multilateral organizations perhaps willing to commit to this project watched and took notes of presentations from the Minister of State for Environment and the Hydroelectric Power Producing Areas Development Commission as they showcased efforts Nigeria has made, the opportunities and challenges that abound in an attempt to cater for those affected.
I'd like to see more development in that sector to drive the Nigerian potential, which I am told in the excess of 20 megawatts in hydropower alone.
You need to visit the communities for you to know the environmental challenges the communities are facing. And this is something that we don't have enough resources to be able to counter. And that is why we are here to look for supporters to help us mitigate against these challenges.
Construction of dams have displaced many host communities, particularly in Niger and Kebbi states. Although there has been interventions in Benue and Kwara, with focus now shifting to Kogi, Plateau states for their own ecological problems, requires partnership to raise the standard of living of host communities. From Dubai, Charles Alpha, NTA News.
And joining us now via Zoom from Dubai is the Managing Director of the Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria, Lazarus Angbazo. You're welcome, Lazarus Angbazo, to NTA International News. Now, one of the areas of focus at COP28 is fast-tracking energy transition, the need to move from mere promises to action. How has Nigeria fared in terms of partnership or support for the closing of the gap that exists in the sector?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to your program, and that's an excellent question. Thank you. Look, before I start, I'd like to say a very big thank you to His Excellency the President, who has kind of led us to COP28 and has given us the opportunity to showcase, the potential investment opportunities in Nigeria. Obviously, we as a country have been on a clear mission, led by the President, to take our economy to $1 trillion. And no one is working harder than the President on this, and so we all owe him a gratitude. He is on the pavement, pounding the pavement, telling the story about the basic infrastructure opportunities that we have in the country. And basically the message is, for us to get to the $1 trillion, we need infrastructure. We need sustainable infrastructure. We need climate resilient infrastructure. And so what we signed yesterday, the Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria signed an investment agreement with two excellent partners, Solage International, which is Dutch company, one of the leading European solar PV manufacturers in the world, and then the Pan-African Green Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is based in South Africa. And what this agreement does is to focus on three things. One is localization of manufacturing, rejuvenating our industrialization. Number two, it's a big focus on green manufacturing. And then, of course, the last item of it is a focus on renewable energy equipment manufacturing, which provides the supply chain basis to make our investments in renewable energy very sustainable and very efficient. Now, obviously, the technology itself, it's a very leading edge. It's lightweight. It's 100% recyclable at the end of life. So you can see that this not only is going to provide a supply chain foundation for our renewable energy industry, but it also unlocks an entirely new industry, which is the recycling economy. It expands it, it intensifies it, but it also allows us to optimize the local basic material inputs. Nigeria is blessed, with the petrochemical industry, and so this is going to be a big source of the raw material input, not just for the products that will be manufactured in Nigeria, but that can also provide stock and feedstock into the supply chain of lightweight plastics, solar PVs around the world. It has the benefit of also obviously unlocking more jobs, technology transfer. So this is very exciting. The response has been strong. We already feel and know that we've got interest from institutional private sector investors that are very interested in this. And so this is all coming together very nicely, and I think it puts Nigeria at the leading edge, Nigeria being one of the first countries on the continent to have an energy transition program. And this is a key part of it, not just to kind of advance on the promises, but also to provide the industrial basis, the technology base, so that our investments in this segment is going to be sustainable and competitive.
Okay, sir, could you please tell us more about the significance of this MOU that was signed?
Well, the significance of this MOU is that it will localize the manufacturing capacity of up to 1 gigawatt of solar panels. This is going to be the sole industry factory that we're going to have, at least for Solage and Infracorp, that would not just meet the local demand, but actually we expect to locate it in a free trade zone where we can actually also use it to supply neighboring countries. The significance of it in the technology is that at the end of life of these solar panels, they can be recycled. It will also, as I said, the feedstock for it is plastics, recycled plastics, and virgin plastics. So it leverages local input. And so you can see from end to end, this is a product that is going to be fully localized in terms of industrialization, in terms of manufacturing capacity, in terms of the technology that is going to be transferred, and of course, providing the foundation, for a very sustainable investment, in the productive phase of renewable energy that are leveraging solar.
Thank you so much. This is actually a win-win situation for Nigeria. Thanks for the perspective you've given to this. Managing Director, Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria, Lazarus Ambazu.
Please permit me to express my profound gratitude to the government for giving us the full support. The president, obviously, as I said, has been leading the charge in terms of selling the fundamentals of Nigeria's economy, in terms of the confidence, investor confidence, both locally and globally, as well as, in terms of just the ability to actually take the risk. We've got a lot of support from the Netherlands government as well. I want to appreciate the Netherlands government. The Crown Prince was there to support this. Of course, we received tremendous support from the Ministry of Environment, the Director General of the National Council on Climate Change, the Minister of Finance, the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, the Minister of Power, and also the Minister of Trade and Investments have given us solid support on this, and of course the Board of
Thank you.
the Board of Info.
I am sure
really
that the government is all ears to what you're saying, and they acknowledge your thanks as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having us.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
We continue with the rest of the news. 3 commercial vessels came under attack in international waters and the southern Red Sea, just as earthquake of 5.1 magnitude struck northern Turkey around 60 kilometers south of Istanbul. Kolo Mohammed tells us more.
The Red Sea, considered an alternate and shorter route in comparison to the Black Sea, has helped to balance sufficient food supply around the world. Since Russia rescinded on the deal to haulage Ukrainian grains via the Black Sea, an alternate route via the Red Sea was arrived at. Currently, the United States say 3 ships conveying food grains, daily needs and essentials, industrial raw materials and supplies came under heavy attack by what it described as Houthi-drone missiles. A U.S. Navy Defender ship has been deployed. As a result of this, food haulage via the Red Sea has been put on hold to secure the area and the route going forward. In other news, 5.1 magnitude earthquake has struck northern Turkey, around 60 kilometers south of Istanbul. No casualties have been recorded so far. Around the epicenter of the quake in the Marmara Sea, Gemlik Bay, near the city of Bursa. Reports say some people left their homes and walked out on the streets, fearing the buildings will collapse. Istanbul, a city of 16 million, has long feared another major earthquake since the catastrophic tremor in 1999 killed around 17,000 people, mostly in the Marmara region, and about 1,000 in Istanbul, which lies near the North Atlantic fault line. Experts say an earthquake in Istanbul will be deadlier than the quake that hit southern Turkey and northern Syria in February, killing about 60,000 people, mostly in Turkey, and destroying scores of thousands of homes. Kolo Mohammed, NTA News.
This is news on NTA International. We take a break now. Thanks for staying with us. Heavy rains have continued to wreak havoc in divergent parts of the world. In East Africa, the devastation has changed living and commercial track of lands with fatalities and infrastructural loss. The most recent is in Tanzania, where the death toll and destruction set to likely rise in the coming days. Kolo Mohammed tells us more.
At least 47 people have been killed and 85 others injured in landslides caused by flooding in northern Tanzania. Government warned that the toll could rise in coming days. The district commissioner, Dodoma Province, Janet Mawanda, said the heavy rains over the weekend hit the town of Katesh, some 300 kilometers north of the capital. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan in Dubai for the climate conference sent her condolences and said she has ordered the deployment of more government efforts to rescue people. After experiencing an unprecedented drought, East Africa has been hit for weeks by torrential rains and flooding linked to El Niño weather phenomenon. El Niño is a naturally occurring weather pattern that originates in the Pacific Ocean and drives increased heat worldwide, bringing drought to some areas and heavy rains elsewhere. The Horn of Africa is one of the most vulnerable regions to climate change, with extreme weather events growing increasingly common and intense. In 2019, at least 265 people died and tens of thousands were displaced during 2 months of relentless rainfall in several countries in East Africa. Kolo Mohammed, NTA News.
The federal government of Nigeria has applauded the management of Commercial Bank for the upward review of its loan scheme for micro, small and medium enterprises from 30 billion to 50 billion naira. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on MSMEs and Job Creation, Office of the Vice President, Temitola Adekunle Johnson. The upward review of the loan is to increase the number of beneficiaries of the bank's loan scheme and impact more livelihoods. The loans will be given to beneficiaries at discounted rates of 15%, as any further review will be based on the loan performance after a year. Vice President Kashim Shettima appreciates the gesture by the bank and notes the impact of its partnership with the federal government in the MSME space in Nigeria. Kaduna State government has commiserated with the families of victims of Tunga Biri community in Igabi local government area of the state who were attacked last night. Dauda Mohammed reports that the overseer, Ministry of Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Aruwan, stated this after a closed-door meeting.
Kaduna State government woke up to the news of an unfortunate incident which occurred last night, where it was alleged that military personnel on clearance operations inadvertently bombed civilians in a village, Tungambiri, in Igabi local government area of the state. And as a result of that, the State Deputy Governor, Hadiza Sabwa Balarebe, convened an emergency security and stakeholders meeting which was held behind closed doors. At the end of the meeting, the Overseeing Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Aruwan, briefed the media on the outcome.
The GOC 1 Division, Nigerian Army, Major General V.U. Okoro, explained that the Nigerian Army was on a routine mission against terrorists, but unfortunately, some members of the Tudumbiri community were affected. Search and rescue efforts are still ongoing, as dozens of injured victims have been evacuated to Barrow Diko Teaching Hospital by the government. Like I explained to you, the search and rescue efforts are still ongoing. We will communicate to members of the press further development as we receive. We are sad by this unfortunate incident, and Kaduna State government, under the leadership of Senator Obasani, has condoled members of the entire community.
The meeting was attended by heads of security agencies, Chairman Jamaatul Nasrul Islam Kaduna State Chapter, and District Head of Rigasa, in whose domain the incident occurred, and other stakeholders. In Kaduna, Dauda Mohammed, NTA News.
The network of people living with HIV and AIDS in Nigeria has resolved to advocate for policies that prioritize access to comprehensive healthcare, education and economic empowerment for all affected by HIV/AIDS. This was at a candlelight memorial to mark the end of this year's World AIDS Day. Basi Itankbang reports.
This gathering is not just to celebrate today, but to ignite a flame of hope, solidarity and action in the network's fight against HIV and AIDS.
People recorded to have HIV and receiving treatment to 1.63. So it shows that Nigeria is working towards ending AIDS actually by the year 2030. But most importantly, those barriers that is limiting people to even come to know their status, to go out to access the services, is what we really need to address.
While acknowledging remarkable progress made over the years, the network said gaps in access to treatment, stigma, and inadequate resources still persist.
And they have to right to access services, and then the issue of HIV is not a death sentence. And when we go by the care and the policies that are made and the treatment that is made, whereby when you take your drugs, you become undetectable, and when you become undetectable, you cannot transmit the diseases. So what the fear?
A candlelight memorial was done in memory of those who lost their lives in trying to save lives. It ended with a roadwork to enlighten the public and drive home the message that community must be at the center stage of the fight to end HIV by 2030.
Let communities
Basi Tiger, NTA.
In response to the expectations of the 2023 United Nations High-Level Meeting on Tuberculosis for each country to develop a comprehensive national roadmap towards ending TB by 2030, National Tuberculosis, Buluri, Ulcer and Leprosy Control Program, in alliance with the Stop TB Partnership Nigeria, holds a national consultation to explore avenues for sustained advocacy to mobilize domestic resources to end TB in Nigeria. Tuberculosis remains one of the world's leading killer diseases despite being preventable, treatable and curable. The UN High-Level Meeting on TB in New York, which was the second, provided opportunity to garner commitments from countries with high burdens of TB to achieve the 2027 targets in the TB Political Declaration, which aligns with the USAID Global TB Strategy.
Strong political commitment can actually do a lot in the world. So if we push for strong political commitment, it means we can even have an effective vaccine for TB by 2025.
We still have almost about 70% gap in TB budgeting every year. We are now going to have, for example, the target divided by state. The state will know their target. We're going to have detailed budget. We're going to know what the government is going to contribute, what the state government is going to contribute, what we are going to bring on board to be able to reach this. So that's the next step from now on. So I'm sure by next year, before the end of March, the document will come out.
The actors in the fight against TB tasked the Nigerian government to be specific in addressing the gaps in TB treatment and diagnosis and identifying missing cases to drive progress in the fight to eliminate TB. We take another break on the news. Stay with us. Next is weather prospect for Tuesday. That's it on the news. On behalf of Hannah Olayin, who's been on sign language, this is Nancy Godiangonihu, thanking you for watching.